Okay, this is a story I'm actually like personally invested in. This is a part two of the dark side of Counter Strike. This is with the Counter Strike gambling situation that CoffeeZilla is exposing. This has been something I am hugely fascinated in.
I made millions and millions of euros. I'm going to be delivering justice to these motherfuckers.
I get told that they had posted flyers everywhere in my city. And I mean everywhere. High schools, malls.
They need to go in, even if there's a security guard, even if they're gonna be taken away. If somebody goes home walking, they will be fired.
They sent 18 people outside my door having a quote-unquote protest.
This was insane.
We are having war with others.
This whole situation is just it's just radical, and this guy is a complete anarchist. He's crazy.
Sites as well. Most of the CSGO gambling sites are scams.
I want to know who's really behind this thing, who's really the victims, and who's really the villain.
In our last video, we got bribed, but instead of taking it, we exposed the people who offered it. Now it's time to expose the rest of the Counter-Strike gambling industry and the influencers who promote it for millions a year. Let's start with the basics of what Counter-Strike gambling really is, though. Counter-Strike is a first-person shooter video game where you can buy cosmetic options for your guns called skins. You can get these by paying $2.50 to open a loot box. It spins like a slot machine.
I think we all know how this works, right?
And you get a random skin. There's an entire economy that's grown out of their rarity. And you can sell these skins for pennies or up to tens of thousands of dollars depending on their rarity.
It blows my mind that you can get a skin and it's worth 10K. Or a few lakh, you know what I mean? It blows my mind.
Can then take those skins to Counter-Strike casinos where they will be accepted as currency instead of cash. They use their real-world value to turn this video game into Vegas. You can play slots, roulette, and more, all with a video game skin. Think of it like their version of poker chips.
Yeah.
And when I first
You get a skin, it's worth X amount, you can use that as like a gambling chip for the website.
began to investigate this, I thought, why don't people just use a regular casino? You know, why use Counter-Strike skins for this? Well, I decided to investigate by interviewing a bunch of people who do use Counter-Strike casinos, and I found a disturbing trend.
I've been in the gambling community in Counter-Strike for about, I'd say since 12 years old.
I started gambling on Counter-Strike when I was probably 13 years old.
So they were too young to go into casinos, so they all figured it out online gaming with CSGO as a child.
13 years old.
14 years old.
I think I was 14. Started gambling on CSGO at the age of 12 and 13, pretty much right around there, my 13th birthday.
Yeah, most of the people I spoke to started gambling underage, and it was while they were playing the game. And this trend continues beyond the anecdotal. This YouTuber named Jeff surveyed over 9,000 players.
You know, and the funny thing is, I remember going out to dinner with my dad one day, and this guy and I were talking, and he was a CSGO, player, and he said, I don't even play CSGO anymore. I just do skins and make money off of that. And it blew my mind that there's people who, quote unquote, play CSGO or are involved in CSGO. They don't even play it. They just do it for the skins and do it for the money.
And he found that around 70% of Counter-Strike gamblers start underage. Now, themed casinos have always had an audience, but with Counter-Strike, there is an underage gateway to all of this because all you need is $2.50 to get your first skin through Valve, and you don't.
And let's be honest, most people who are going to be gaming start at a young age, right? Gaming isn't something that like you wait till you're 18 to start gaming.
Don't even need to show ID, which is a huge part of this. Even worse, when you go from the game to the casinos, which are hosted on third-party websites, most don't ID the players either. Or if they do, it's only after you've already gambled thousands of dollars, which is...
And it's like, click here if you're over 18. Every kid who's going to look like McLovin over here who's definitely not 18 is going to check that off.
A bit like if a liquor store asked for ID after you drank 10 bottles of liquor. It's obviously absurd, but it's also very profitable because underage gamblers not only are new customers, they're way more likely to become gambling addicts.
Yeah, because it's probably not going to be their money that they're playing with.
Which is how casinos make most of their money. These days, most physical casinos have a strict ID policy at the door. This isn't because they're good people, it's because they're heavily regulated and would lose their gambling license if they knowingly allowed underage players. But Counter-Strike gambling is fundamentally different. Regulation for these casinos is almost non-existent because they're offshore in Malta, Curacao, Cyprus, and most of them are using loopholes to pretend that this isn't even gambling at all. Look, I'm not going to go into too much detail here because different casinos use different loopholes, But suffice to say, this has been going on a long time.
Yeah.
Back in 2016, a
At
very
least a decade and a half.
similar story broke in a big way about scam casinos and underage gambling problems in Counter-Strike, and everyone was understandably enraged. Valve even got involved, had to send out cease and desist letters. Even the
Damn, it's bad when Valve goes in because Valve only cares about the money. So for them to come in and be like, yo, this is a little gross, that's crazy.
FTC went after influencers, but when the dust settled, there weren't that many consequences. Part of the reason was because of these loopholes. In fact, the most infamous casino, CSGO Lotto, claimed not even to be a casino at all. They said they were a sweepstakes. Now, this is obviously absurd. It's not true, but none of that matters because it got them out of trouble. And so the same types of casinos have continued, just with new owners and new names. What you're left with then is an industry that is unregulated, if anything, self-regulated, which I discovered creates its own race to the bottom problem. Because
yeah, when it's self-governance, it's just gonna be people who it's like the fall of human tragedy, where they're not gonna worry about the longevity of it and trying to make it a good thing for the community. It's gonna be the people at the top are trying to siphon as much money as they can before it all comes crumbling down.
consumer protection in an unregulated market will literally drive away your customers.
Yeah.
For example, remember Monarch from the last video and his casino CSGO Empire? One of the things they do that I actually think is good is they block certain IPs where gambling is illegal, and they admit that what they're doing is gambling. Now, you can easily get around these geo restrictions with a VPN, but it's sort of an extra hurdle. Most Counter-Strike casinos don't even do this. And listen to one gambler explain why this tiny decision to just geo-block one region, the US, affected who he chose to gamble with.
So when I went onto Empire, while it's still easy to bypass it, you could just put a VPN, just takes an extra 5 minutes. CSGO Roll, I can just, once again, type it into my browser. Deposits.
Oh, you're an
are
American.
incredibly- Yes, correct, yes.
So no VPN restriction, no geo blocking.
Yes, correct. So on Roll, 0 VPN blocking, 0 any bypass.
And even though downloading a VPN and like changing your geographic location to somewhere that does allow it is, like they're saying, is an easy 5-minute step, it's still a step that you have to do, where if you could just change the letters on the keyboard, the different strokes of a keyboard, go to a different website and bypass that step, 90% of people are just going to do that.
Saying on Empire there is blocking, but it truthfully is very easy to bypass.
Right. That makes sense. Most people end up going with the casino who asks them less questions, requires less from you. Even if you're not illegally trying to gamble, you just don't want to have to put in personal information, anything like that. This all taught me that in the world of unregulated gambling, it's more complicated than just saying, okay, casinos want toddlers gambling. It's also market dynamics, right? You get a competitive edge by not regulating. Less work, more customers, more money, which means you can't just solve the problem by wagging your finger at bad casinos. The entire system is broken as long as
because it's self-governed.
These loopholes
Technically, it's not broken in their eyes. They're like, what are you talking about? This system is great.
exist. Why would anyone change? In fact, some websites like Clash.gg even advertise their lack of regulation as a feature, not a bug. The CEO even bragged on Twitter, quote, Clash just paid out its biggest one-time cash out instantly with no verification.
That's kind of insane.
Couldn't be more happy with the product and reputation we are building. This guy sees it as a badge of honor to do no checks.
See, he's saying, yo, this isn't a broken system. This system's working great. What are you bitching about?
And it is a positive reputation if you want to appeal to underage players, money launderers, or just people who want to avoid a hassle, a VPN and putting in an ID. And this is all a huge problem. But how big of a problem is it, you might wonder? After all, we're talking about video game skins. How much money could this industry really be worth?
A lot.
I wondered the same thing. So I asked around for
as many rupees as you can hold in your hand, as many dollars I can hold in my hand, put them together, and we still don't even have enough.
How much these casinos are making, and got several estimates. One owner claims he has an 8-figure business, and someone who works for his partner claims that is true. How much does he make on Clash?
His partner, Boris, right, also known as Dogs Playing Poker, Friendly Chemist, he told me directly that it was making about $50 million a month.
That's a lot of money. And this roughly matches
Oh!
what the popular gambling Counter-Strike YouTuber told me as well, saying he'd estimate these sites are making tens of millions monthly. And there are so many of these sites.
What is that, like 500 lock?
That the YouTuber Jeff estimated it all in a different way, looking at the total amount of website traffic compared to a popular online casino.
So when you bring them together, those CSGO websites bring almost double the traffic of the biggest online
Holy
casino today. And
shit.
this online casino
And the online casinos probably have like a reputation with them of like, oh, I'm gambling. There's probably going to be an addiction with these CSGO websites. And it probably is seen as a completely different thing, even though it's the same thing.
declared a gross revenue of 2.6 billion in 2022. Now, that doesn't mean the CSGO websites are grossing more, but it's a great element to put things in perspective.
So even though it's tough getting an exact number, since these casinos might overestimate or underestimate for many reasons, either way, it's clear these businesses are making huge amounts of money. And there's many of these casinos. We've just focused on a few in our videos, but there's so many more of these websites, each potentially making millions a month. And no one's gonna change their behavior until they're incentivized to
Yeah, no, it seems like I need to start one of these websites.
by regulation across the board. Until then, less regulation will always mean a wider customer base, even if some of those customers are underage. The irony here being the biggest voice of change so far really has been Monarch. From the last video, you guys know I am no fan of this guy's methods, but I'll be honest, there's large parts of his public arguments that are hard to argue with. He claims to understand the underage problem because that's how he started as well.
How I got into gambling myself was when I was 13 and I was playing RuneScape, and how
Man's a true gamer.
the duel arena was like a gateway drug for me. That's how gambling started for me, and that's where it went into third-party sites. I'm just disgusted about this whole loop. I think that the whole case system on Steam is pretty horrible. The way how there is no KYC, it's such a powerful tool for getting children and even adults. I think even adults, they have a gambling problem. It's not only like
But yeah, because there's going to be desperate people, and they're like, you're telling me I could win, you know, a $10,000 skin by paying $2.50 and I can win $10,000? Yeah, I need it. I'm desperate. I got bills to pay. I need to get ahead in life. Inflation's killing me.
It's not a age exclusive thing. It's just a machine that makes people gamble. Imagine there's a kid who just plays CSGO and they open one box. Pretty innocent. They get their mom's credit card. They spend €2 to open a box. Okay, then they open a second box, third box, fourth box, and so on. And soon they see their favorite influencer playing on some third-party case opening site. And
Yeah. Boom. That's the wormhole.
this is where it's like switching from weed straight to, I don't know, amphetamine or something. And they just go deeper and deeper into this rabbit hole, and soon they are addicted.
He's not wrong.
And the next thing you know, when they want to stop gambling,
they can't.
It's easy to just close these websites. But what happens when you go on social media? You go on YouTube, Instagram, Twitch, TikTok,
everywhere.
any platform. What do you get? You get gambling ads everywhere. The algorithm starts feeding you. It's like, imagine you are addicted to heroin,
And the internet's just keeping giving you that same addiction, that same dopamine that you're chasing.
then everywhere you go, you just see like heroin, heroin, heroin. Here, look, your hero is taking heroin.
So we have to separate these two things out. Yes, this guy's methods are terrible, but I'll admit, it's nice to see a casino owner talking honestly about their industry and admitting that what it is gambling and not some kind of sweepstakes. But even if Monarch says he wants to change, without the actual power of a
You have to, as CoffeeZilla is saying, you kind of have to respect it. It's like he's not saying, like, he's not going to change his ways, but at the same time, he's not out there virtue signaling saying that he's a saint. He's like, yo, no, I want your money, but understand, if you give me your money, you're an idiot.
regulator, he just ends up having to harass people, threaten people, which isn't going to get him anywhere. Not only that, he's no saint either. His own website doesn't ID people right away. According to CSGO's Empire's terms, they only require you to verify your age if you want to withdraw more than 2,000 coins in crypto.
I would say just in crypto, though.
Or deposit substantial amounts of money.
Oh,
if you withdraw
and what is substantial?
via skins, there is no limit. So Even the guy who claims he started underage gambling, he understands the gateway drug that skin betting websites act as. Even he refuses to fully ID customers because...
Yeah, because he's not saying that he needs to change his ways. He's just tired of people virtue signaling and saying that they're a bunch of angels. And he's like, no, if you guys are going to be demons, admit that you're a bunch of fucking demons.
He knows he'd go out of business.
I'm really committed to, I want to make it stricter and stricter. Like, you can't jump to the deep end just like immediately on one day. That would make us go out of business. But really my end goal is I want to do full-blown KYC before anybody deposits. I want to make it as clean as possible.
This, more than anything, shows the limit to the let's self-regulate idea, right? Even the biggest critic of underage gambling can't bring himself to actually ID his customers up front.
I mean, in all fairness, if he's going to compete in the market, that type of tactic would get you out of that market faster than getting into it.
Because his competitors won't do it, and he says it would ruin his business. So maybe the solution isn't with the casinos at all. Maybe it's a good time to talk about the influencers who promote it instead. Because when
Like
I
Sparkles?
learned and asked about people who got into this type of gambling, I wondered, how did they get into it in the first place? Who did they hear about it from? And one thing kept popping up.
One of the primary ways I actually learned was through YouTube. It popped up in my recommended page because I was a big fan of Counter-Strike.
Interesting.
In my free time. Some gambling videos popped up and I thought, hey,
streamers kind of exposed me to that space first.
I saw it online. I saw a bunch of these YouTubers playing it.
Found out CSGO gambling just pretty much through watching people on Twitch and YouTube. Juicy was one of them. I actually remember very vividly.
Wow.
He was this guy that would do all these case openings on different websites and such. He was very much affiliated with them. He had codes and all of these things.
I've been surrounded by like Syndicate and like FaZe Clan, for example.
I watched
That I was wondering if any of the big orgs, the FaZe clans, the Optics, the Cloud9s, any of them would be mentioned. And of course, FaZe is the first one.
my favorite YouTubers.
Right. YouTubers and streamers, of course, are going to be one of the main advertising vectors.
For sure.
It's been that way since 2016. Influencers are the main lifeblood of these casinos. Fast forward 8 years later, it's just different influencers, different casinos making the money than before. But
Yep.
unlike casinos who we know intuitively are blood-sucking leeches on society, influencers, by contrast, they're
people?
Well, we expect more from them. We don't get it, but we expect more.
Okay.
So I wanted to confront.
Well, yeah, we expect more because if you're going to be putting yourself out in the public light as whether you would want to admit it or not, some shape or form of a role figure, because you're influencing others to follow your lead, you ought to be the best version of what society could be, right? And if you're falling short of that standard, you're failing your community and your society.
Front 3 different influencers who do this gambling streaming stuff of different sizes and get their opinions on why they promote this stuff and how they can possibly justify it.
I don't think people should gamble, honestly, on the sites. They shouldn't gamble at all. But I enjoy doing it, so it's what I do. If that makes any sense, I don't know.
No. That part of it makes sense. The part where you want to do it so you continue to do it, that makes sense. But let's say I'm like, I don't think smoking's good for you, but I like smoking. It makes sense that I would smoke. It doesn't make sense that I would get
other people to
promote it.
Yeah.
To
yeah.
get people.
Like, I shouldn't take money to do that if I think that's like bad for society or bad for community, and I understand that that's like a bad habit that I have. I shouldn't take money to promote it for other people to pick up that bad habit. That should be on them and their own time. And if they do it, then cool. But I'm not going to be the one to lead them into that door.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand that perspective too.
I just want the money.
And
he just wants the money.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's anything wrong with it, to be honest.
It's a very good argument, and it's like you can't really argue against it, right? It's not a good thing, but it's something that I still enjoy doing, and so I'm going to continue to do it.
Is it just too much money? That's an acceptable answer. It's just too much money to turn
down. I'd say in the beginning it probably was too much money. At this point, it's not about the money for me. It's just I really enjoy doing it.
Well, in the videos,
It's also like he's too far gone, and his sponsor is paying for like private security. So if his sponsor drops the private security, his life, or at least he feels like his life, is actually in threat.
I don't sugarcoat. I don't try to convince people that winning or gambling is a way or a solid option to flip a quick buck. Even in my wins, I preface that this is not a sustainable thing. So it's not something that I necessarily. I don't know. You can watch the videos and decide for yourself if it feels like promotion, but that's how I reason it to myself. I don't even, use the rewards. I don't advertise it at all. So I don't, the rewards thing, it's more of like I said, I don't advertise it. So
if you're making YouTube videos on it and telling people to, when they sign up and use your discount code, that seems like you're advertising it, no? Kind of pushing it?
I don't
but
feel
you
guilt.
do advertise. You get paid to advertise it, right?
Not the reward system. No, I don't mention the rewards.
Not the reward system, the website and the gambling and everything else.
No. I'm saying CS:GO roll.
Yes.
We're talking about the gambling side.
Yes.
We both know it's not going to be good for people. And then you're kind of saying, well, I don't really promote it. I don't really advertise it. But in a way, if you didn't promote or advertise it, they wouldn't pay you millions of dollars.
Yeah, I watched your Trainwrecks video and you said the same thing. You're like the less dirtier of the dirt bags. So I guess I would call myself that. And ultimately, if you watch the video,
at least he's honest, the least dirty of the dirt bags. And I mean, Monarch's probably in that sense. He's still a dirt bag, but at least he's like an honest about it, and you can respect it. You know what you're gonna get.
You can decide like how less dirty is he really. But yeah, that's my answer.
Most people are going to, unfortunately, gamble with or without certain streamers, right? Obviously, it's intended to be like a McDonald's ad. You see a McDonald's ad, you see a Big Mac, you're gonna go, I'm craving a Big Mac. So it's the same concept.
You're saying like, oh, I'm just like kind of promoting McDonald's, whatever.
No, it's not. It's not like promoting McDonald's. Let's be honest. Gambling is a terrible addiction. My closest friend,
at least there's some honesty around it,
a very, very bad gambling addiction. He'll get paid on, let's say, a Tuesday, and by Tuesday night or Wednesday morning, his whole paycheck is gone for 2 weeks, and then he has no money. And no matter what I do to intervene to help that individual try to hold his money, to help him sit there and self-exclude, he finds ways, because it's an addiction. It's just as bad as any other drug because of that dopamine rush.
Yeah, the answers were part admissions, part rationalizations. They all knew gambling was bad, but they'd stopped short of actually doing something about it because they were making money from it.
And it's the amount of money that they're making that allows them to have a lifestyle that they couldn't live without that kind of sponsor. They would have to go out and get a normal job and try to compete with the rest of us in the open society and really try to fight hard for every dollar that we earn, right? When someone says, yo, I'll pay you $50 million or $5 million or $500,000 to promote this ad, you're like, yeah, that's life-changing money.
Even when they knew people whose own lives were hurt by it. So if you know the harm firsthand, you've seen it in your own life, how do you justify peddling that drug, as you call it?
It's going to happen, in my opinion, right? And like, there is no justification. Can I say like I'm a drug dealer? Sure, you could. You're gonna label certain streamers are gonna be labeled as a drug dealer, in essence, and that's okay, I guess, if people are going to view it that way. I mean, I want
to know how you view it.
How I feel,
because
wow.
Because
this guy probably, it seems like he has a lot of like personal demons, personal stuff that he's hiding in his own closet, like we all do, and maybe has like a poor self-image of himself, maybe because of this as well.
Said it was kind of like a drug, so I wanted.
It is a drug. I mean, it hits the dopamine levels. Hell, I get hit in dopamine levels if I hit big. It's and then that becomes a YouTube trick.
Yeah,
I feel bad. I do, right? I hate to hear when people say I've lost money. I hate it, dude. I really,
because you probably feel some level of guilt behind it and associated to it.
It crushes me because some people legit do it because they're bored and then they lose everything they have, and it is a terrible feeling to hear that, right?
Not to question their sincerity, but I've heard all of them say that they hate when people get addicted. They don't want to see anyone hurt, but they refuse to stop even though they know casinos are run on addicts. Fun fact, Clash.gg, who earlier we had their CEO admitting he was proud of not IDing players, also admitted that the majority of their revenue comes from a tiny fraction of their most addicted players. Quote, less than 1% of Clash accounts make up 80% of our revenue. It's just an admission from their founder. It's an open secret. So these influencers can empathize about how horrible addiction is, but they know that's where their paycheck comes from. The CEO of Clash has a profile on Twitter that says, never gamble, the house always wins. But ironically, his house is probably from people gambling. The fact of the matter is that these people...
Well, I mean, in all fairness, once more, if he's telling them not to gamble and people still come to him and gamble, that's on them. That's not on him.
Say with their mouth, I feel terrible, I feel bad. But when it comes to actually changing, they never do. Even when they directly scam people, they will still find a way to rationalize it. And this next part is pretty dark. But for a moment, we're going to have to go back for a second to the PGL Major Tournament and talk about the thing I was originally offered a bounty to investigate. A specific casino that is owned by the same group as CSGO Roll, but this one is called Hype Drop. It's owned by Monarch's arch nemesis. Hype Drop was a casino where instead of gambling Counter-Strike skins, you could gamble real-world items, like real-world loot boxes. For example, you could pay for a real loot box that would get you anything from like a $10 gift card to a Lamborghini, for example.
What the fuck?
It's just gambling with physical items.
Imagine you win that Lamborghini, though.
But the real secret sauce of this website was a loyalty program called the Daily Cases, where the more you spent, the higher level you got, the more you'd get these daily cases, which essentially were free money.
I feel like this is like an insurance scam, or like insurance companies where like you pay for your like a health insurance, but the deductible is going to be so high, like the daily thing is going to be so high that when by the time you actually get to the good stuff, to like what you're using the insurance for, and maybe not good because like health insurance in this case, or like this earnings over here, you've already spent so much money that you probably could have just bought it with either straight up or through investments. You know what I mean?
Every single day you could go on their website and open these daily cases, and theoretically you'd get free stuff, free money, which if that sounds unsustainable, it is.
Yeah.
It was all part of a scheme, it turns out, to make the Danish government believe that
You're
Hype
telling
Drop
me
was
you're
not
lying?
actually gambling. I received a letter Hype Drop gave to the Danish regulator arguing players could not lose money on their site because over time, the daily cases paid back all the losses over roughly 3 years. This is
over 3 years, all the money you paid for us, we promise you'll earn it back.
one of those loopholes we talked about where they're going to argue they're not actually gambling
Oh,
because
that's gross.
you can't lose. Now, of course, I asked Hype Drop about this, and initially they denied ever sending this letter. Eventually, I showed them that I had their document, and they finally confessed, saying they did do it on one occasion, but denied trying to pass it off as an investment. They then quickly scurry away saying, this is our last comment.
Wow.
I bet it is, because they got caught making bad faith arguments to
Yep.
the Danish government. This type of loophole is why in their promotional material, Hype Drop said things like, yes, you'll always make at least your money back, and quote, we offer return on what you invest through
Yeah, you can't say that. At least just be honest.
our daily rewards.
As people, as it's already been pointed out, people are going to gamble and people are going to do stupid things, right? You can't stop it. But at least be honest with them.
System, and quote, it's a win-win situation every time. Now, it only takes a few moments to realize that offering jackpots,
Yeah, it's a win for the owner of the website, and it's a win for the website.
money back to losers isn't gonna work. It has to be a scam, which is why many people like Monarch called this thing an unsustainable Ponzi scheme. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but
Monarch's right.
he's right. On March 27th, 2024, Killian, the owner, announced that he was shutting down the site, effectively rug pulling his customers.
Wow.
Who were all relying on these daily cases to make their losses back. This is part of what Monarch's paid goons were yelling about at the PGL Majors. By removing their daily cases, Hype Drop, in my opinion, stole from their users and effectively revealed their legal loophole to be a lie. Now, with that all understood, let's circle back to this guy, Juicy.
Well, in a sense too, if you're doing something, this happens to like in gaming and in Ubisoft with XDefiant. If you paid for the premium pass for XDefiant, saying, "Hey, I am going to pay $100 to be a founder of this game, so that within the next year of content, this $100 is going to help fund that." Well, it gets shut down within a year of it being, out. Thankfully, Ubisoft is a good company, and I got my money back. But in this case, it's like you put your money into a company that may not be around for a year. That's a risk that you have to assume.
A gambling streamer who we heard from earlier. He was easily one of the biggest promoters of Hype Drop, and I wanted to know, given that he has widely promoted a scam, what was he gonna do to make things right? So let's talk about Hype Drop at this point. This has been kind of what precipitated the PGL majors, according to Monarch. He says, I had to protest Hype Drop. It was a Ponzi scheme that collapsed, and CSGO rolls next. Now, when I was looking up Hype Drop, you were one of the people who was promoting it, like one of the bigger YouTubers I saw, maybe the biggest. Yeah. What's your take on promoting this stuff? Where's your ethical line for what you will take, what you won't take on?
Yeah.
I assure you that ethical line is on the check, right, that gets written, and it's somewhere between 5 and 6 zeros past a double-digit number.
So to my understanding, I had never worked with a gambling site that had rewards that function like a Ponzi scheme, you know? So when I was playing on it, I'm not promoting the rewards, you know? I'm not like, this is the most rewarding IRL gambling site. So I was just playing with...
This guy's having to do some crazy mental gymnastics just to say they paid me a lot of freaking money and I couldn't say no.
The product itself and, you know, making content around that. So obviously it's really f***ing annoying and bullshit when the rewards get, first off, cut down, and then second off, now there is no reward offering and the site's going away. Like, I'm obviously very upset, not just for my own intent, but also mainly for the people who, especially if people put money into Hype Drop, thinking of it like a good monetary investment versus like, I'm just gambling, you know? I'm pretty sure from my understanding, that wasn't like a advertised thing. At least they weren't advertising, they weren't saying, hey, you got to tell them about this great investment option.
They were putting tweets out.
I think that was more of a legal loophole that they were, you know, trying to operate.
Hey, at least they could be honest about it, them trying to work through illegal loopholes. I can respect it.
He's just lying about some of this. He says he didn't advertise his daily cases, but I think he didn't think I'd watch his videos because he definitely did.
Daily reminder, claim your daily cases. They're free monies. Code JUICY will get you 3 free cases, so might as well. I mean, my daily cases used to pay a filthy amount of money. It was a full-time income just claiming them. Claim this every day, dude. We're making a full-time salary every month.
Yeah, he calls the daily case
$189 is a full-time salary? Yeah, right.
This is basically a full-time salary. But I thought surely after seeing that Hype Drop scammed people, he would cancel his sponsorship with the same company, like it's the sister casino CSGO Roll, right? He has to stop that now that he's scammed his audience. He didn't cancel it, right?
Nope, they just added another zero and they're like, you good? He said, you add another zero? They said, yeah. He said, we're good.
Right? So let me ask you, does that mean you're no longer going to work with CSGO Roll since they're run by the same people?
Well, I've already promoted the site and I already have fans who use the site. And I don't think the reward offering there is going to change, but
oh my god, yeah, this guy is not learning.
It's unfortunate.
But I think you can see the logic of no one thought Hype Drop was going to rug people from these cases, these daily rewards. And if you are regretful, wouldn't that turn into some kind of action on your part to like change who you're working with?
Nah, it's just like, yeah, man, I feel bad, but I need to pay my bills.
Yeah. I understand that completely, but I feel like Counter-Strike sites aren't there to stay forever in the first place. I don't think anyone's expecting them to stay forever.
Yeah, this guy's just a dirtbag, but he's not willing to call himself a dirtbag.
And there really isn't many great options. So yeah, maybe it's f***ed up of me that I continue to do so. Absolutely.
Okay,
but,
maybe not.
It really is one of the better options on the market right now. And there's ton of dog shit on the market, so yeah.
And there it is. Absolutely, he doesn't want to change. Absolutely, he's not going to stop what he's doing. At the end of the day, past all the rationalizations, that's what it comes down to. It doesn't matter what you show them, what you prove to them. They're making too much money. And that is the part that I was struggling to like really get from these people, is they would always say like, I do it for the love of gambling, man. I would do it if nobody paid me.
Yeah, right.
Of course, they always do it getting paid. But this is the single biggest cope of gambling streamers. In fact, even Grim told me this, who we spoke to earlier about getting harassed. Luckily for me, though, his tax records are public, so I knew that he was actually making a few $1,000,000 a year and
oh shit,
had a few million reasons to lie about why he was doing what he did. So I decided to ask him if maybe the money did play a role. Somebody reached out to me. They said, hey, I found Grimm's business.
Of course it is. Now, Grimm, are you going to be honest?
He made $5 million last year. Is that true? And does that undermine what you said about it's not about the money?
Yeah, no, that is true. That's like what's one of the, I guess, the downsides with Norway is
Good for you, brother, for at least being honest.
everything's public. If they know my company name, even just my name, they Google around, they find it. So like everything that I make is public, and
I think that's probably a good thing.
yeah, you could say that the argument is obviously hypocritical because like I made a lot of money, but like I don't do it because I make a lot of money. I'd
False.
still do it if I didn't make a lot of money.
So either that or he may not be lying. He may gamble even. He may just, this guy may be a complete degenerate who would gamble even if he was broke. But there's a casino company who's like, don't worry, we won't let you go broke. Just use our website.
And like even if I wasn't paid, I would still do it when I had excess money to do it because I like doing it. And it might like sound like a lie, but that's how I started it, and that's how I always wanted to continue.
It sounds like the $5 million might have something to do with it. It just, but that's fine. I mean,
yeah, no, I mean, like I said, I 100% understand what
This guy sounds like XQC. I can't get past it.
people would think like, oh no, it's only because of the money. But like I know myself that it isn't only because of the money, but it's obviously great. Don't get me wrong.
how much did you make this year?
I'd rather not say, but I could say it's a lot.
Why not? Just be honest. What's the wrong in saying you made 100K this year? A little less, 96. Who like what? Say what 88. Say it with your chest.
Come on, Juicy, tell us. Tell us. Look,
So I actually don't know the exact answer myself.
Of course you don't.
But I can tell you it's going to be right around Grimm's number,
Damn. So about $5 million.
which I know he told you already.
Grimm's $5 million.
Yeah, and then I got to pay a stupid tax rate on that, but it's probably around there.
Both made about $5 million last year. So it's kind of obvious why they're not going to stop based on just a moral argument.
Yeah.
And I began to wonder, like, how many of these influencers take these deals because they...
And you heard Grimm, or one of these guys, Juicy, they're not going to be around forever, so they know this $5 million contract is not going to be a forever thing, so they're probably taking the money, trying to invest it, have people manage the money. That way in a few years, they could just walk away and just live their life.
They are so...
And to be honest, I would do the exact same thing.
Profitable. Well, luckily, thanks to the hard work of Jeff, who we mentioned earlier, whose documentary you should definitely go watch, I found out it's almost everyone.
This is the top 300 CSGO streamers since the beginning of this year, ranked by watch time. Of 300, 226 are currently sponsored by at least one of them. Some
So you're telling me I need to pick up one of these sponsors?
have up to 5. We are looking at 75%.
75%. It's insane. Counter-Strike gambling is basically funding over
Wow.
half of the scene with these ridiculous paychecks. And I began to wonder, not about the people who said yes, but the people who said no. They're the minority.
Yeah, the people who said no, I want to see. Please interview them, please. I need to see these virtue signaling people. Like, no, we're too good to gamble.
I wanted to
Just kidding.
know, for the people who said no, how much were they offered, and why didn't they take it?
This is something I think about a lot. Because
yeah, I bet
there have even been moments in time where I've been offered $300,000 for a month of gambling.
Oh, imagine, and you just dumped that 300K into Bitcoin. Wait a few years, that 300K is going to turn into 3 million or 30 million.
$5,000 an hour. That could change my life. That could retire my mom.
Yeah, that could do a lot.
That could alter my family's lineage, but I keep turning it down.
Yeah, I don't know. If that opportunity came in front of me, that's my whole purpose. I want to be able to retire my parents. I would love to be able to buy my dad a car. I would love to be able to take over and buy my mom a house. Hell, get a big enough house so where she could move in with me and we could just take care of each other and have like a multi-generational home. I would love that. So if that opportunity came in front of me, I would be completely honest and transparent. I wouldn't try to pretend like I'm a saint, but I would take it.
That was when I was an even smaller streamer than now.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
One of the things I've been thinking a lot about is like how to change this, you know, what does even change look like, right? That's part of what I'm thinking about. It's like, what does even change look like for this industry?
It doesn't.
And one thing that I came to is like,
honesty.
The incentives have to change because they're so out of whack. The second you allow gambling sponsorships and streamers to like get sponsorship deals,
yeah, but then how are you going to enforce that?
How are you going to stop someone from taking
that
amount of money? You're a good person, so you just don't want to do it. That's your personal line.
But somebody who does take it doesn't necessarily make them a bad person either. Granted, that could be me coping, but I'd like to think that's true.
But I think it's hard for just even somebody who's a good person to say no.
Yeah.
It's only because you know what it would do to people. But that is such a crazy amount of money. You know, this interview almost ruined me on this story. I began to wonder if change was even possible.
How is it?
When money like this is in the field for play. Like,
yeah.
The casinos aren't going to regulate themselves because
Nope.
they lose customers. And
Yep.
there's so much money at stake.
Yep.
Most influencers aren't going to say no because there's so much money at stake.
And I would be one of them.
And they could change their life and their families' lives by taking these deals. The more
And it's more not even just for I'm not even thinking about anything for me. I'm thinking about Lauren getting her a car, paying off student debts, like a house. Like that's what I'm thinking of.
more I looked into it, you can't expect all the people to be immune from this influence
For
all
sure.
at the same time, which is the only way to make change. It wasn't just the influencers or casinos either. Even esports, the most professional, supposedly, side of the game, was flooded with gambling.
Yeah.
Almost every professional.
And then CSGO is like the most reputable esport. And this is the gambling side of it. Is like there's a whole, the other side of CSGO is the whole gambling aspect of it. Like maybe that's why it is the most popular.
Professional team had a gambling sponsor. For example, FaZe has Rollbit.
Wow.
DGL Major was sponsored by 1xBet. G2 was sponsored by
CSGO Roll.
And this
Oh my
creates
God.
the same problem that it created with the influencers. If a sponsor is offering you buckets of money,
Yeah.
it becomes really hard not to take, because if you don't take it, your competitor will. In fact, one esports owner argued the entire ecosystem in Counter-Strike, especially in the lower leagues, is basically funded by the gambling industry.
So is it bad? Truly, is this bad, or does it just need more transparency? Is this gonna be like one of those things of like smoking weed? Don't make weed illegal, just make it, or illegal. Make it legal, regulate the hell out of it, and tax it. With this, you can't do any type of regulations because the people who are regulating it are the people in charge of it. But at least there has to be some type of maybe government entity that just makes this more transparent and like try to work their way better around those legal loopholes. Like try to fill up those loopholes.
And gambling addicts. So I called him to understand more of how this works. Can you walk me through how gambling functions in the esports economy?
The issue is that, or the issue, I guess, at hand that you're talking about is that this activity is enabled by more controversial sponsors in gambling and skin rolling sites. If those sponsors weren't permitted, then the tier 2 and beyond scene in CS specifically would likely wither or die, or at the very least constrict to a very large degree. So that's what I meant by my tweet, that you should thank your local betting cracker. If you're a fan of tier 2 CS and beyond, then the reason you're watching that team play is probably because of that better.
That's insane.
To note, this is also true of a lot of orgs' profitability. So the value that traditional sponsors bring in for a tier 2 org, even more.
I didn't even think about that. If one of these companies sponsor the org, it's gonna bring in way more than like a beef jerky sponsor that may give the org like 10 grand. This one's offering $3 million to $5 million.
You know, we've G2 and Rollbit, for example, the value that a traditional sponsor brings in versus a Gamba sponsor is like 15 or 20% of the value.
Wow.
So you don't really turn that down as an org owner unless you've got very specific moral qualms or disagree with gambling on a personal level.
But does this inflate the economy where if you're not taking a gambling sponsorship, you're almost at a disadvantage because your economics and what you're able to
obviously
to play players and attract talent is much less than somebody who, for example, has a gambling deal and is making way more money than you?
Yeah, to a degree, that's true, I think.
Yeah.
Very few organizations are able to do it without Gamba. Largely, if you don't have Gamba, you'll almost certainly
And you see how he's not even calling it gambling. He's calling it Gamba.
be unprofitable.
Gamba sounds a lot more friendly and welcoming than gambling.
Heard it there. You almost can't compete at the highest level without a gambling sponsor because they pay so much more than everyone else. And if everyone else is doing it, they will have more money to spend on a team than you and get better players and therefore likely beat you. There's just no more profitable sponsor to turn to. And so a lot of people actually take the money. So even if that sponsor is a site that allows minors to play with no ID, who cares? Just slap an 18+ sticker in your ad for them and get plausible deniability. That's what G2 did when announcing their CSGO role sponsorship. A depressing fact about this video is the star of it, a guy named Monesi,
It's probably like 17 years old.
turned 18 only days before they announced the sponsorship, which
Oh,
means
shit.
in the video, it was filmed when he was 17. He was underage in their casino, supposedly 18+, and no one cared. A perfect metaphor for this entire industry.
Oh
It's
my
all
God.
optics. I have to tell you, by the way, the exact day I announced I was investigating Counter-Strike gambling, CSGO Roll did announce for the first time that they were going to be asking all users to prove that they're 18 before playing.
Nice move.
Whether or not it's coincidence, they announced it same day. I don't know. Take it for what it is.
And in this life, there's no such thing as coincidences.
Maybe it's a token gesture. They'll roll back. Or maybe it's a sudden change of heart for the youth. I don't know. Either way, the point I'm making is that for many people and professional teams, the choice to take a gambling sponsorship is like the choice for PEDs in the Olympics or steroids in the WWE. You can say no, but if everyone else is using them and getting ahead, you choosing not to for ethical reasons will
Put you at
get
a
you left behind.
disadvantage. Yeah.
And your peers will become more successful than you. It's a depressing cycle that has me flashing back to the CSGO Wild days several years ago and realizing we're right where we started.
Yeah.
CSGO Wild in 2016 was a gambling website secretly owned, slightly disputed, by FaZe Clan. And according to FaZe Banks, his motivation to do that was pretty simple.
My motivation for doing it actually was at the time we weren't making enough money to buy a CSGO team. All in, the venture was going to cost us like $1 million, and we definitely did not have anything close to that. So
wow.
In my brain, like we got to finesse it. We got to figure out how to make the money to buy this team now, because in the next 6 months, year, this team's gonna be worth like $4 or $5 million, and we're not gonna be able to get into this game, which in our heads we need to get in this game.
Yeah, when you hear it,
wow.
Sounds crazy. Sounds like a cope, but his plan actually worked. FaZe got away with it. FaZe Clan has a Counter-Strike team that won second place in the infamous PGL Major all these years after CSGO Wild. It's alive and well, and still funded, by the way, by gambling, just by a different gambling website.
Insane.
Now it's Rollbit. It's reportedly a multi-million-dollar deal. Now look, I know
I wonder if Banks has anything to do with that one as well.
seeing this is all very depressing, but we've actually learned some really valuable things. Firstly, we can't fix this at the individual level of influencers, esports teams, or even casinos. Doxing people, harassing them doesn't fix it or the underlying problems. It's a deep systemic problem of incentives. Of course, acknowledging that also doesn't absolve individuals. I wouldn't dare say it's okay for Juicy to do what he does, where people have been scammed and he continues to work with the same parent company. That said, if he stopped, it wouldn't change things suddenly. Someone would take his place.
Yep.
So if we're serious about trying to solve this problem,
And that's why I think somebody like Arrow, who probably thinks about it at night, probably has a little bit of regret with it because somebody else just takes the contract. Not like he did anything to actually help.
We have to
He just passed up on a lot of money.
look farther up the food chain than influencers, even than casinos, even than esports leagues. We have to zoom out and see the root cause.
Next time, available on Patreon. Hopefully, I don't even want to watch the teaser because I don't want to go on Patreon because I couldn't share it with you guys, right? Unless this video gets 100 likes, then I will go into Patreon, I'll pay the thing, and we will watch it together in Discord. But if you're picking up what I'm putting down, then please like the video, subscribe, and if you really like it, then share it with some of your friends. My goal here is to spread a positive message while sprinkling my 2 cents on big topics like American, Indian, and world geopolitics, and even small stuff like Twitch drama and online debacles. And if you want to see it live, come join me over on Twitch, twitch.tv/ActuallyElrod. That's where I'm going to do all my reactions, and after the reactions, that's where we get down a game. And if you're like, hey, I have a video that I want this dude to sprinkle his 2 cents on, then come over on my Discord and let me know and join the community there. And while we're at it, I have to say thank you to everybody who has made that Discord just so poppin'. I never thought I'd have a Discord that's so flowing. It's really cool to see. Shout out to you, Bobby, Omni, Demon, all of you who have been in there who are just super active. Logie, you're the man. Logie is the one who's like modding and helping run the server, so thank you, Logie. Lastly, I challenge you. I have a challenge for you. Make somebody laugh today. We all know there's enough hate and vitriol in the world. If energy is contagious like the flu, then let's spread and get everyone contagious with our positive energy, right? Not negative energy, because there's so much of that. And if we could just be a small little change in someone's day, then you never know. Maybe that's the thing that starts shifting this world to a happier, healthier, just better place. And with all that said and done, thank you guys, and I'll see you on the next one.